Hi everyone, welcome to my video. This is Emily at the Coloring Oasis. Today we are going to be coloring in the brand new Coloring Book Cafe Cute and Sweet Coloring Book for Adults. This is a very easy light grayscale beginner's coloring book. If you're not a beginner and you are somewhat seasoned, you can still color along. I'm going to be using some common mediums and just have some fun and get in there and practice your pencil techniques. If you're a beginner, this is perfect for you. And if you're not, you can just color along if you just want a little bit of inspiration. This book is brand new. It's only $3.99 right now, or at least when I saw it a couple days ago on Amazon. Perfect for Valentine's Day or the whole month of February, or just sweet love all year round. I do enjoy easy coloring with this kind of chunky light gray scale. These really cute pictures because they're just like stress-free and easy. I love this one, and fun. And there's more back here as well. I will link below this book in the comments. But today I'm just going to get started. I'm going to show you the colors that I'm using. I am going to be using Prismacolor pencils. We're going to do the basket in this video, or at least most of the basket. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing, what colors I'm using. We are just going to color right in the book, right in there. No backup pages are needed underneath because nothing's going to bleed at the moment. So I have 4 Prismacolor pencils I'm going to be using, ranging from darkest to lightest. Starting with Mulberry, which is PC 995. Next, I have Hot Pink in PC 993. Then I have Basic Pink, or just Pink, in PC 929. And the lightest, I have Deco Pink in PC 1014. And I line these up to my right in the darkest to lightest in the order I showed you. So, and when I take one out in order, I put it back in order so I can gravitate them. The way that we're going to do this is in this weaved basket. I'm going to color each individual section darkest to lightest. And so let's start with our darkest here, Mulberry. And you see how, like this one, we have the little grayscale shadow here, here, and here, and here. Mostly here, though, so I'm going to do the darkest here, and I'm going to work my way inward. And then the one that goes this way, we're going to do dark, dark, and work our way inward. There's more than one way you can do this. You can do dark all around and box your color in with the lighter pink in the center. We can do more like a gradient, which is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of doing the gradient. I'm really torn. And I think I'm going to do one of each and then just decide. Then it might leave one that's a little off kilter, but I think that's what we're going to do. So let's start with this one up here by the Loveberry's heart. And I'm going to take my Mulberry. I'm just going to very lightly color over that light tinged gray area. And I'm going to do the same over here. I might do this a little faster on camera than I would do if I'm doing it alone. So feel free to pause the video at any time if you're following along. If you feel a need to do that. So this is what we're going to do first. We're boxing this color in. We're doing the darkest shade on the outside, lightening it up a little as we bring it a little bit in. Go a little bit lighter pressure as you pull it in, just a little, so we can overlap that next color that's just a little bit lighter in the order that I showed you. There we go. Let's do a little bit lighter. And this, you know, Amazon paper, this is an Amazon paper, but it works really great with these Prismacolors. I mean, honestly, unless it's like a really silk gloss waxy paper, I've never really found any paper that doesn't work with Prismacolor pencils. So, and you probably either need to buy these colors individually if you're coloring along, or you would probably need the full set. I pulled mine from my full set, so it depends on what you have. If you have a smaller set, you may not find all of these colors. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the hot pink. And I'm going to go over the one I did and then move a little bit inward into that white space. So we'll go over, we'll blend a little, bring it in. So we're basically boxing in this color, this square. And we're going to have a little bit of that lightest pink in the center. Leaving room for 2 more colors. So go a little lighter and lessen your pressure as you go in. You can press a little harder if you're going over the previous color for some blending. You can make this as heavy, thick as you want, or as light and kind of feather touch as you'd like. If you want more of that, see more of the little tooth on the paper. It's kind of a nice, what I like to call a feather dusted look. All right, let's go into our third color, which is the regular pink. And go over the color we just did and blend, work our way in to that white area. Pressing lightly. Darker when you're blending and lighter when you get into the white area. Much lighter. We're just closing it in till that white square is getting smaller and smaller. I think I'm going to need my white pencil too. I should have pulled that out. We're boxing it in. It's okay to see quite a bit of tooth with this color because we're going to take our light pink, our deco pink. I'm not worried about every little bit of tooth here. Let's get our final pink, the deco pink, and we're just gonna go right on over the one we did. I'm gonna leave a teeny little baby bit of white in the center. Teeny little baby bit for like a little white spot we're gonna go over with the white pencil. So we're just going around and around, kind of a square. Boxing in, blending over the other colors. This lightest color too is nice to blend over all the others. Brings the colors together, softens them up a little. Just go over it, but leave it almost white. Let's grab. Now, you might want, if you want, you can take your original first dark, the mulberry, and go back over and darken this a little. It'll take a little more color, and you can repeat the process if you think it's too, light, if you wanted it darker. I'll just show you how when I go over each bit kind of again. I try to get all the color, though, the first time. But if you see any little white tooth you don't like, just feel free. And let's get that light one again. Leave that little bit of white there for the white pencil. I do need to grab my white pencil. This is the case I use here, my unicorn case. It has my older set of Prismacolors in it. I have a brand new set that I have not even opened, still in plastic wrap, I've had since Christmas. I'm just kind of waiting to use up some of these. See, some of them are like down to the bare minimum, but some of them are like still decent. So it's like, when do I open my brand new set? I don't know. And that one I'll just use right out of the box. My white, is this my white? That is not white. Oh, here's my white. See, my white's seen better days. So grab your white pencil. I'm going to sharpen that with my Jar Link sharpener, which is the best color pencil sharpener ever. It's the only one I use. Barely going to put it in. It knows right when to stop, so barely push. It's set on number 3. Stops on its own. knows when it's just right. All right. That is perfect. So I'm going to go in and just color in this center square with the white. And I'm going to pull the white outward over that lighter pink we did. Kind of try to blend the white over the lighter pink, even to the lighter one we did before that. I'm not going to go all the way to the dark though. But I'm just going to soften those lighter two shades and blend it in the center there. Just to kind of soften. I forgot my little crumb brush I use for my waxy crumbs. So this is basically the gist. The little bit of white and in the center and the lighter pink kind of makes it look like there's either light shining on those parts of the basket, or it's faded, like those kind of like an Easter basket that's painted. They chip over time and you can see underneath the green or the pink or the yellow some of the white. That's kind of how I like to do that. All right, so we're basically working with 5 colors if you include the white. Let's do this one here, but I'm going to do it instead of the dark, or I mean, we're going to box it around the same way, but I always start with where the gray, I go in the direction of where the gray is. So the gray here, the grayscale is going this way, whereas that on this one, it was going this way, right? So I'm going to start this down here. I just like to follow the gray. Follow the gray. And if it overlaps into the next little piece of basket weave, don't worry about it, because those edges are all going to be dark also, dark mulberry. And as you've done a couple, you'll get faster. I probably won't do all of these on the camera. I'm just going to show you how I'm doing it. So I'm going to talk you through one more. I'm going to do a little darker this time on my original color. Just going to go over a couple times and then bring it down a little. Blending, lighten it as I go in. And you know, this is a basic, easy coloring book. I'm not worrying about perfection or how perfect my pencil technique looks or getting every little bit of white tooth covered. I don't tend to put as much time and effort into my, basic Amazon books. Maybe in my overseas ones, my international ones, but definitely not my Amazon ones. Yeah. Okay, let's get the next color, which would be, again, the hot pink. We're going back in order of the darkest to lightest, the way I first showed you. That's why if you put them back in the order of remembering left to right, darkest to lightest on your workspace, you'll remember what order to color them in. I will be doing a second video where I will then be showing you how to do strawberries. Lighten that a little. And then I'll probably do a third video where we do up maybe the background or some of the little flowers. And I'm going to be using, of course, a lot of my accent. I'll use stickles and glitter. I like to really doctor up my pages. This is the pink PC 929, the third color. Gonna start going in over that other pink. I pressed a little harder on this one, so it's not looking quite as kind of translucent-ish. I almost prefer the lighter press with this color combo, but this is a good pink color combo. I've used it for a lot of different things. So I would, let's see, keep it, yeah, it's a little darker and that's all right. Let's get our final light pink, which is the Deco Pink, and go over, bring it in, start closing in that little box, lightening it up to make way for our white. We're just, I mean, this is a very simple I don't know if I want to say structure, simple method where you have multiple colors of the same color, you know, but different shades of, you know, different shades of blue, different shades of pink, different shades of purple, darker to lighter, maybe 3 to 4 colors. You line them up, you work your outside, work your way in. That's how I do even my skin tones with my Copic markers. It's just how I like to do things. I'm gonna leave a little more white on this one. Let's go then to our white. You probably will have to take breaks doing this. If you're doing each little panel, your hand might get a little tired. I don't do a ton of pencil work because it takes so long, but so I'm making the white center a little bigger on this one because it is a big chunky centerpiece. And you can, you know, you can make that white center really tiny, you can make it bigger, you can do whatever you want. If you think this is too much white, you are more than welcome to close that in. Where's my, it's bugging me. I don't have my crumb brush. You do get little crumbs with too much pressure with your Prismas, which is fine. These colors are light enough, they're not going to smear, but generally when you do this, you're going to smear across your pages, so you want to use your dusting brush. Oh, do I have mine here? I need mine. Yes, I do. All right. I use a brand new makeup brush, like a foundation brush. Definitely better. And you can go over the whole square with white if you really want to soften up that look. Again, we're just doing some basic concepts here. Okay, so now you can kind of see what it looks like. Let me zoom in. You can see that. You can see this bottom square here. I did more center white. So, you know, I might go back and pull in some more pink there. I just kind of wanted to show you, you can do the center. Oh, my camera's crooked. As much as you want. So I might get my pink, my third pink, and just bring that pink in, cover a little more of that white up there. I kind of wanted that one to show more. All right, so let's just do a couple more, work our way out. These ones up here, we're going to do the same thing. We're basically going to do the whole basket. If you see any little white tooth showing through, just go in with your darker one and re-outline it. Another method you can do, and this is what I call the boxing in method, is like a gradient, so left to right. So let's say this one right here, we want to do the dark here, color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4, so it goes left to right, dark to lightest. And each one is dark to lightest, each panel, so they're all going this way, dark to light in a pattern. You can do that. I like the boxing in method for baskets and stuff just because it shows different areas of light. That's just my preference. So let's do another one or two, and I'll tell you about the book I'm reading if you guys are interested. I'm actually reading 7 different books right now. I do tend to read between 5 and 7 books at a time. 20 minutes per day in each book. So by the end of the month, I've usually finished about 10 to 12 books. So let's move on. I'm going to move on. So when we get these 2 pieces here, you're going to see these little squares that are probably like what it would be like if you could see through the basket. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. If you can see through the basket, you would think there'd be strawberries in there. See this here and this here? So if these strawberries went all the way down in the basket, you would see red through there. So we can go in there with a red marker and make all these little see-throughs red, like the strawberries. Or you can just do a different shade of pink and it wouldn't really go noticed. So anyway, okay, let's move on to this one here. Gray is here, so I'm going to go, since it's an up and down one, I'm going to go that way. Anyway, so since this is Valentine's Day month, I thought I dig into some romance novels. I used to read a ton of romance, like, of course, in the was it 90s? It was like, I was like Danielle Steele all the way, but now that's just like cheesy. And of course, back in the 90s, I used to belong to this membership. It was the Zebra Historical Romance book membership, where you would get like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 new Zebra romance novels every month. And they have those they're paperback novels. They're always historical period romance. And they had the little hologram glimmer thing in the upper right corner. They were called Zebra holograms. And they had like the brightest colors. And it was always like romance novels about like pirates and dukes and duchesses and Indians and just all these like historical period romance. So that was my thing in the 90s. And the 2000s, I kind of went away from romance when I went into college and studying English literature, and then, you know, reading all the classics, and then grad school, and it was more classics. And then I did this big children's literature project, and then a lot of literary contemporary fiction. So I kind of lost my luster for romance until about 2019, when I rediscovered reading romance for the first time in probably 15 years or something. And it got me to fall in love with romance again. And that was because I'm onto the second pink now. That was because the books were by, oh gosh, what is her name? I think her name was Lorelei Hale. And it was the Texas Legacy series. And there was like 4 books: Texas Bride, Texas this, Texas that, and Texas something else. And there were about 4 different brothers, and how they each came across getting their wives. One was like a mail order bride. One was a daughter of a oil tycoon. These were all 1800s setting. One was rescued as an Indian captive. I don't even remember, but they were so good. They're like so really good. And I'm like, gosh, I really miss this, you know. So I did that for a while, and then of course I got tied up again doing other things. Had to go back to hardcore literature. And anyway, so this year I'm on a mission to branch out into other types of literature those that I've lost sight of because I had to read stuff I didn't want to read, or, you know, the hardcore stuff, the Dickens and Brontes and all the Tolstoys and whatnot. But I'm branching out. You know, I research what are some of the most highly reviewed, highly rated, or editor's pick, or award-winning books, or books that have some kind of notoriety, and I carefully select what I want to read. And what I'm reading for this month, since it's Valentine's month, I chose a book called, what I'm reading now, I'm 3/4 of the way through. It's called A Promise of Provence. And it's book 1 in the, God, is it the Love in Provence, or Finding Love in Provence series or something? It's contemporary romance. And the author is Patricia Sands. So I'm not sure. So the problem is, and I generally don't do audiobooks because for me, listening to audiobooks is more about listening to stories, like sitting around a fire, listening to someone tell a ghost story. Completely different than reading. Listening and reading are not the same thing. When you are hearing an audiobook, you feel like you're watching TV almost. You see characters and their movements and actions like they're alive. You don't see the wordplay. Reading is all about the language, the words, how the words lay out on the page, how the words bring the characters to life. Seeing the words is completely different how your mind works. But so this one I'm listening to an audiobook, which I don't normally do. And I wish I had got it in paperback. But I was working on a lot of art, and so I'm like, I need something I can just listen to. So I picked that one because it you know, has some very interesting reviews. My dad and his wife had traveled to Provence, said amazing things about Provence. And I'm like, I've been to France. I went to Paris, Montmartre, and I did not go to Provence, though. I went to Montpellier, somewhere where all the medieval walled areas are, and St. Charles Cathedral. I did not go to Provence. And so I'm reading that book. So I'll tell you a little bit what it's about and what I think. So it is definitely nothing like a historical zebra romance. It's like I'm like 3/4 of the way through. There's not a lot of romance going on. So I'm like, is this really a romance book? I had to look at it again. It's very interesting. If you're middle-aged, like I am, the book starts out with Catherine is the main character. It's her like 20th wedding anniversary or something. She comes home from work, assuming her husband is going to have his usual romantic dinner and yada yada, all set up for her that he always does. They have like a 20 years, this kind of tradition that he would do for her for their anniversary. And so she's all excited and on her way home from work, and she stops and gets flowers and wine and all this stuff. Whatever, she brings it home. She gets there, there's the flowers are on the sink and a card, and he's not there yet. And she's like, oh, okay. So she's all, of course, the first 2 chapters are building up how excited she is about it, the anniversary, and how wonderful he is, and how happy she is, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, then she opens the card, and all of a sudden, you see she's slumping down to the floor in shock and drops the card, and he basically tells her, happy anniversary. Sorry, I don't want to be married anymore. I fell in love with another woman. She is pregnant. We're having a baby since you never wanted children. You know this is my lifelong dream. And I'm sorry, but I want a divorce. Yeah, so that's how she spent her anniversary. So I'm thinking, where's the romance in this crappy story is what I was thinking. So I'm just like, but if you're my age bracket in your 40s, maybe a lot of us have been married to a couple of duds, at least one. I had one in there somewhere. So I can relate to this change at midlife because I'm currently single, sort of. So so that got me. So I'm like, what the heck? What kind of romance novel is this? So the first good set of chapters is all about grief, trauma, loss. We're dealing with rejection, and really this book is more about, how I would review it, and what I will say when I do my review, is more about rediscovering yourself at midlife, and second chances at love story is kind of where I believe it's going. All right, so there we finished our third panel. What are these things called? I don't know, square, section. Let's move into our next one. So anyway, I don't know if you're coloring with me or I'm talking to myself. So anyway, she never wanted children, or she couldn't have them or something like that. I don't remember, but so of course she's devastated, and that would ruin anybody's life. And the way he did it was super crappy. And I had a husband that did something like that to me. So I could really sympathize with this character, and it was intriguing to hear where is this going. And there's a couple of girlfriends in this book that she has that help her and support her through this and try to get her to go out and get her life going and blah blah blah. One of the characters, her name was Molly, the audiobook reader of this book, is hilarious. And one of the voices she does, which is for the character of Molly, no joke, the way she does her voice sounds like, I almost could swear it was her. Like, I'm just like, I had to look her up because I'm like, that sounds like her. And I don't even remember her name, but she's the actress in Legally Blonde 1 and 2. She's the bend and snap girl, the beautician that has the funny, she's a comedian. She's got that, oh my God, like that kind of a voice. She's so funny. What's her name? You know who I'm talking about. She's the one that does Elle Woods's nails and teaches her the bend and snap. So I used to call her the bend and snap girl. So she was also in another new movie with J-Lo, a new comedy that was just released on, I think it was Paramount, and it sucked. It was a dumb movie. But the way that gal, that actress talks, her voice is so funny. But no joke, in this book, The Promise of Provence, the character of Molly, I think the ebook narrator used in her mind's eye that actress and how she sounds like to bring to life the character of Molly. Like, it sounds just like her. Like, I almost could swear that was her. Like, it was so, once you listen to it, it kind of just blew me away. But anyway, a little tangent. So Molly, she's got one other friend. Anyway, so there's this whole section of the book where she's trying to figure out what to do with her life next. There's some slow parts in there. When she was in college, she, like, her friends are like, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do next? Maybe you need to get away so you don't run into that jerk you're married to again. Then she goes through the whole divorce scenario. And then it's like, well, when she was in college, she went to Provence for like a semester or something to study something, whatever her college major was for, which I don't remember. And, there's some reflection of how much she loved it, and it's been 25 years, and she always wanted to go back, but her husband wouldn't let her. Her husband was very, like, controlling and anal, and she couldn't do anything she wanted with him. And so, like, she was used to always having to get his permission to do things, and she didn't really, like, know how to plan things for herself and do things for herself, and had never really been alone because they were, like, high school sweethearts. So it's like a whole self-discovery scenario going on. So anyway, her friends convince her to maybe do like a vacation exchange where she puts her house up in Canada. I think they live in Canada, for rent. And she exchanges with someone else, and she decides to go, I think she decides to go to Provence because she had fond memories of it in the past, which, she's kind of like against it. Like, I don't really want to, but I guess I will to get you guys off my back, and maybe it'll be okay. She's, very Eeyore-ish in a lot of this early part of the book, which is kind of a drag, I admit. But anyway, who wouldn't be after that scenario? So she goes to Provence. And the one thing I do like about this book, which I would have enjoyed it more if I had the tangible printed book, because I could see how the words lay out these beautiful descriptions of Provence on the page. That's what really true great art and talented writing is all about, is how the words come together on the page and the lyrical prose and how skilled the descriptive writing is. When you're listening to it, you just can't really, you see the scene, but you don't see the writing, and it's just not the same. But anyway, the visuals that I gathered listening to the audiobook were so intensely vivid that the words on the page were beautifully laid out. So there's some good writing, but the descriptions of Provence, like the food and the wine and the flowers and the views, and she gets there, and her French is rustic. It's been a lot of years. She's completely on her own. She gets lost. She has to drive. She actually gets a car. She has to drive from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris to several hours to Provence. And she's like, it's like the first time she's done anything on her own. Ever, really, because she was married since, I guess, after high school. And, there's a lot of disasters along the way, some self-discovery, but just the description of the boulangerie, which is the bread shop, and the bread and the patisseries, and it's just like, oh man, like I really want to just whip out a French baking cookbook right now and make something, because it was amazing. And the café crème, which is their version of café au lait, which would be, our version of café mocha, café crème. She's like, what is this? I want my mocha. Like, don't they have mochas in France? There's a whole chapter she's going around trying to find an American coffee. It's pretty funny, actually. She's like, what is this? Don't you guys sweeten your coffee? It's kind of... anyway, she gets to this house where she did the exchange with the family who took her house in Canada. And there's a dog there. The dog got left behind. She had agreed in the email sequence when exchanging the house that she'd take care of their dog when they came to Canada. So there's a dog there waiting for her, a lab, a golden retriever or a lab. He's just this great character. The dog plays a really important role in the story, actually, to her healing. And I love how the dog is shown in this book. Oh, I want to back up a little before she gets to France. Oh yeah, I totally left out a whole big section in the book. So when her husband leaves her, grieving, divorce, yada yada, what do I do next? She goes home to stay with her mom. Her father's dead. She goes home to stay with her mom, who's like 80-something years old. I guess she's supposed to be, Catherine's supposed to be in her 50s, the main character. I guess she was married close to like 30 years or something like that. Yeah, I think. Anyway, she goes home, see her mom. Her mom is ailing. But her mom is a Jewish concentration camp Auschwitz survivor. And Catherine never got to hear many stories from her parents about that. And it's really interesting that that's ended up being the situation in this book, because I was also just recently, that same week, at night I've been watching Hunters with Al Pacino on Amazon Prime, which is all about the crew of people that go and hunt down the old Nazis that are living in America to get vengeance. And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of quinky dink. So anyway, her mom starts telling, she gets the feeling her mom is going to be dying, and she wants her mom to start telling her the true stories of what happened to them in Auschwitz and how her parents met and yada yada. And so there's this whole section of Jewish history in there and some appreciation for that part of history. And then, after her mom passes away, her mom leaves her a letter with some pertinent information in it that she didn't know, and some legacy information that her mom didn't want her to know until after she was gone. But so then it's like double depressing. It's like, dude, like her husband leaves her for another woman and is having a baby with her, and leaves it in a Valentine card with flowers. I'm sorry, an anniversary card and flowers. And then her mom dies. So it's like, what the hell? This is like 1/3 of the way into the book. And I'm thinking, then I'm starting to realize this book is a lot about growth, grieving, growth, trauma, relationships, and about change, because these are two major events that change you. Divorce, losing your love, losing parents, missed opportunities like having children. These are the biggest things that cause people the biggest scars, the biggest wounds in life, or women, I guess you could say, or for anybody, I guess, but I think it hits women particularly hard. So this book is really about, she had lost her identity in her marriage, and then she has all these traumas, and she has an opportunity. Her mom wants her to find herself again and make a new life for herself and be happy. And so that's when she decides, with her friends pushing her to do the house exchange. That's how she gets to France. So anyway, forgot to add that part. So she's in France, going all around France, having these adventures, sightseeing, great descriptions of France. She even goes into Paris. Love all of that stuff. Some parts are a little slow in the audiobook, because if I was reading the book, I would skim those. I am a very, very, very fast reader when I want to be. So, but anyway, things happen, all kinds of interesting things happen there in Provence. She meets a couple of men, one man in particular named Pierre, who's the son of like a farmer on the property next to the house she's rented. She meets him. He becomes friends with her and takes her around, shows her some things in France, but then they have a good time, but then her time's up and she has to go back to Canada. I think she rented the house for like a month or something, and she goes back, and no real romance ever happened. And she told her friends about this people she met, and this guy Pierre, and her friends were like, ooh, and she's like, and the main character, she's like, I'm not interested in men. Dating is not even anywhere near on my mind. I'm just looking at like developing a new life and focusing on me for a change and being free. And so there really is still no romance. And this is like, we only have like 1/3 of the book left, is where I'm kind of at now. So she goes back to her job. She's there for a few months. She's not really liking it like she did before she went. She misses Provence. There's drama going on with her friends. She's not, and then her job, she works in a medical office. They're going to close down and she basically loses her job. And she gets like some severance, and then her friends are like, why don't we go back to France? She can't think of what else she wants to do. So she's like, I'm going to go back there and then try to figure out, maybe I'll get some inspiration for what I want to do next. And then she takes her friend with her this time when she goes back to show her Provence. Her friend Molly, the one that sounds like the actress that I was talking about in Legally Blonde, whose name I can't remember. What is her name? I have to look it up after. Ugh. Can't believe I can't think of it. Anyway, so then she goes back, but she doesn't stay in the same place. You know, she can't rent that same house again. I think she rents a different place, like a villa in a different locale. Town area, and she's with her friend and she's showing her friend around and various things are happening. So I'm like, is this gonna be a repeat of the same thing happened previously? But it's not so far. Some things are happening. While they're there, her friend Molly, someone in her family dies. When they're over there, she gets word. Just like, and I'm thinking, I don't know, I've seen a lot of change in the character as time has gone on, that is for sure. And I can see where they're going with this plot line, this whole trope of self-discovery and reinventing yourself at midlife. I just don't, you know, for a book that's considered a romance, you generally have to have romance, you know, as far as any literature goes, as far as the category, throughout the whole book. So, you know, the time they showed her with Pierre, the guy that I'm suspecting she might like, eventually was just shown as like friends. No thoughts toward him in that way, no advancements. He was very charming, suave, and ooh la la kind of a guy, you know. like her friend Molly sees a picture of him, is like, ooh, hello, sign me up for that if you don't want him. But so it's like, I suspect what'll happen is she'll cross this path again, I think. There was another guy she'd met in there before Pierre that turned out to be a real louse. But I'm thinking she's going to end up in the same place, come across Pierre's path again, and it's going to become more than friends, I guess. But I'm almost wondering if there's going to be like a surprise, like she's going to meet another man on this second trip around that's going to be the one. And the writer's kind of stringing me along, like making you think who the guy's going to be. But if this is about love and, you know, Promise of Provence, which is the concept of A Promise of Provence is the title, it's promising her a better life in the future, a different life than what she had before, regrowth, rebirth, that whole concept. But it is part of the Love in Provence series, so I'm expecting some love action to happen here somewhere. So I'm like, so it's not what I expected. Like the whole Auschwitz, the concentration camp stories, and the beautiful relationship with her mom, and the very graceful way that her mom passed away, and the appreciation that she shows for her mom's, her life, and what she's given her, and a promise she makes to her mom. You know, that's all really nice. And so I just, you know, it's not what I thought it would be, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like, I was expecting, you know, I don't read a lot of contemporary romance. I don't really like contemporary romance. I think it's boring. You know, we have enough of that in TV and movies. In fact, I prefer TV and movies that are historical time period set romance, you know, honestly, than modern day ones, you know. And yeah, there's some cute rom-coms like The Proposal, Sandra Bullock, or Monster-in-Law, or like any of those. But like, I just, contemporary romance novels it's like too everyday life. And nowadays there's like so few good romance writers, because I don't want to read a contemporary romance and get in there and read about people on their cell phones in the novel. She checked her phone. She told her Alexa. She did, like, you know, like when I read novels, I want an escapism from the real world. I don't want to be reminded. I want it to feel like it's happening now. I don't know. I think books were better. Obviously, the classics that have stood the test of time are the best books ever written in history. But I think even like contemporary fiction, contemporary romance was better before like 2005, before like all the technology boom, the books that were plot and story and action driven and not driven by an author that probably isn't as skilled, or a newer author trying to squeeze in all the modern day technology into the stories. Some of my favorite romance movies are probably like Shakespeare in Love with Joseph Fiennes and Gwyneth Paltrow, or I really like the End of the Affair. If you've seen that with Julianne Moore, that's a World War II love story. I like Tristan and Isolde, the movie. Really good movie. That's a ancient Celtic love story. There's one I love. You've probably never heard of it. It's called Dangerous Beauty with Rufus Sewell. It's one of his earlier movies. And it's a true story about the two lovers in Venice during the Venice courtesan who falls in love with a noble, and defying all odds, even though he was married and she was a courtesan, they managed to spend their lives together. Such a good romance movie. I love that movie. One of my favorite movies of all time is called Dangerous Beauty. And it takes place like during the plague and stuff like that. I love that stands the test of time. Like Outlander, the series, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Pure romance. Love it, love it. I'm trying to think of some of my other faves. Like some of the movies like Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. Not fully a romance, but it's that time period. There's romance plots in there. Last of the Mohicans has a romance plot. Some of my favorite movies. I'm trying to think. And there's some others, like my mom's favorite movie of all time was The American President with Michael Douglas and Annette Bening, and I love that movie as well. And you know, it's pure happy romance, and there's no cell phones and technology, and it's just, you know, that's just what I want to, anyway, those kind of movies are what I want to see and what I read is what I'm trying to get at. But so far, other than the computer in the province of Provence, when she goes in to book her stuff, there's one mention of a cell phone, like she can't use her GPS out here in France. So like, you don't see a lot of that. So I'm liking it so far. So that is good. That's why I love the historical romance when I do read romance, because you don't see any of that. And I think it's kind of fun. You always get little bits of history in there. Kind of transports you to another time and place. So that's the one audiobook I'm reading. So I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'll link it below if you guys want to go check it out. The other one I'm reading, which I love a lot more, but it's not on the same scale whatsoever. It's a small trade paperback, steamy romance novel, but it's a historical romance. It is by, oh God, what's her name? Lisa Keypass. Is that it? Keypass? It's called The Devil in Winter. Really enjoying that book. And not because of the steamy parts or anything. I tend to kind of skip past those a little. I just love it's not nearly as slow as the other one. It's strictly about the relationship building and historical time period. And that one takes place in Victorian era Scotland. England and Scotland. And I'm about halfway through that one. That one I'm actually reading. And I don't read a lot of romance, but because it's Valentine month, I decided to squeeze a few in there. All the other ones are winter reads, fantasy, and a bunch of other books that I'm reading right now. But if you guys want to know, I can tell you about it. But Devil in Winter, very good book. That one's about a young girl who's being forced to marry some cousins or something, and only because her father's dying. And back in those days, she's the only child, so she can't inherit her father's money. It has to go to her husband, so she has to have a husband, or the money won't even go to her. It'll go to Never Neverland or something. So her family's trying to force her to marry some wicked, total jerk kind of a husband, scandal kind of a mean guy, and she doesn't want to because she knows she'll never see the money again. So she wants a husband that she chooses, that she doesn't have to like be involved with or sleep with, where he can have part of the money and she'll get her part of the money, and they can live their own lives separately and go their own way. And she doesn't really want to get married. She wants to do other things. She wants to be independent and travel and do art and things like that. But there's this scoundrel kind of a wealth guy who's kind of wealthy, but he's losing his fortune because his family invested it poorly. He's known to be like the ladies' man of the era. Kind of a devilish rake, kind of a unusually good looking Machiavellian kind of a guy who's a real and she knows of him. She straight up approaches him and asks him if he will marry her, and go into an agreement where she'll give him whatever money he needs to save his family's business, and allow her a certain allowance, separate housing, freedom to live their own lives, and he can have all the mistresses he wants, and to get protection against her family, just so she doesn't have to marry that evil guy that her family's trying to make her marry. And of course, they hate each other from the start. He is not the marrying kind. He's a womanizer, and he's not attracted at all to her, the way she looks. And that's that typical romance is characters meet, characters hate each other, characters are nothing alike. There's conflict, tension, disdain even. And then there's usually 2 to 3 crises in a story that brings them closer together and changes how the characters view each other until they come together and realize they actually like or love each other. So I actually used to write and publish, so I know that's the typical story structure you'll notice in most romance in particular. It's one of the reasons I think I stopped reading is because I used to write it and I just burn out of it. And there's not that many good books out there these days for romance. But anyway, so I really love the description. Like their tension, their hate for each other is highly entertaining. I'm really enjoying that, and it's funny. And she's like is posed as like this mousy, bright redheaded, weak character, and he's like 15 years older and more experienced. She's inexperienced, and then as soon as like she comes into her power and they get married, like she just turns into like this spitfire. And I suspect they're about to head back. Her family didn't know that they just ran off and got married in Greta Green, which is in Scotland. So if you wanted to get married in London without having to get permission from the church and state, people back in those times would escape to Greta Green, which is in Scotland, just on the border, past the border of England. So they took a 2-day carriage ride to go there to get married, and then came back. And I suspect next she needs to go back to her family and tell her she's not marrying jerkface. She's already married. And the one guy who is her cousin, she was supposed to be marrying, is almost like dangerous, kind of vile. And I have a feeling that it's going to go poorly. He's going to try to attack her new husband, who apparently we think they hate each other, is probably going to protect her. And of course, this book does have some steamier scenes in it, which, being my age, I'm kind of over that, but that, that's fine. It doesn't add a lot to the story, but there's only a couple of those that I saw in there so far, but I'm really interested in the plot. So that's called The Devil in Winter, Lisa Keepass, and I'm really liking that. And that's part of what they call the Wallflower series. There's 4 books, and I just picked that one because it's a winter read and it's winter, and apparently it's like book 3, but it does work as a standalone book. But she does make reference to a few of her other Victorian society friends who've landed the perfect husbands or whatever, and I suspect that's what the other books in the series were about that I did not read, because she makes a reference to them. The Wallflowers were her friends, a group of girls who all had dreams to have certain kinds of husbands, and my guess is in each book they're not getting the husbands that they originally banked on. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. No idea where that's gonna go, but sometimes if you read enough you can predict. So my basket's looking pretty good. Goes by a lot faster when you're talking about something interesting. I don't know if you're interested, but if you're coloring along with me, then you're hearing it all. So let's see, what else am I reading right now in my stack of books? I gotta look at my pile. I am reading, oh yeah, I got some good ones. I have to look for my pile. Well, I'm reading War and Peace, so I'm not going to recommend that to anyone who does not have a literature background or a college literature education, because I mean there might be some of that people that would read it that don't have the background, but definitely most people would not get past the 3rd page and they'd be like, this is hard, I'm bored, I don't understand. Why is there a bazillion names in this book? War and Peace is 1,400 pages. It was written by Tolstoy, but it's one of the only books ever written that has over 1,000 characters in the entire book, and it's very, very, very hard to keep track of the characters. You have to literally keep a reading log and write down their characters' names and a little mnemonic device phrase to remind you who they are, so when you see them again. So you don't really read War and Peace, you study it. And there's a lot of reference to history during the Napoleonic Wars in Russia, things like that. So there's annotations whenever the characters are talking about this person or this battle or this law, and there'll be like a 1 or a 7. You got to go look in the annotations and be like, what is that? Because I don't, you don't know what they are. And so I am doing that, but that's more just for my literary repertoire of getting through all the classics that I haven't read yet. So that's more of a not the fun reading. I mean, it is fascinating. My interest in literature is in writing talent, in wordplay, and the greatest books ever written, by the word style, by the prose and the lyricalness of the writing and the brilliance of the writing style. So I love the classics, but most people, they get bad vibes of when they're in high school and had to read To Kill a Mockingbird or 1984 or Mice and Men or something like that. American literature, definitely not my favorite. I like British literature, English literature. Okay, I'm on to this side of the basket now. Don't know I'm going to do this whole basket in the video. How many minutes is this video so far? 1 hour. Woo! Well, I'll tell you about one more book I'm reading, which is so good. I can tell you about 2 books I'm reading. They're winter fantasy. Oh my gosh, one book is so good. I love it. So good. Okay. It's not done yet though, so I don't know if I can tell you it's good. It's not. I don't love it as much as another one I'm reading that I just finished that I love. But the one I'm reading now that I'm halfway through is called Winter Wood by Shea, S-H-E-A, Earnshaw. Entirely beautiful writing. Love it. It's not really clear what the time period is. I thought it took place in the New England in winter. I thought this was a time period during the Salem witch trials, but I don't think so, because I thought, I have to look again, there was a reference to a vehicle. So probably not, but It's not really clear, but it's about a girl who has magical abilities, but the town, they're in the snowy kind of remote village that's just across the lake from a boys boarding school, and the girl, I think she's probably 16. Her grandmother was like a witch, or they all had magical powers. Her mother, her grandmother, all the women on her side. She's home alone. Her grandmother passed away. Her mother doesn't want to live their magical lifestyle, so she does a normal kind of thing with some agricultural stuff and travel, so she's not there. And none of the women in her family get to keep men. They fall in love. The men always die. Anyway, so she's kind of like a loner, a girl who is an outcast in the town they live in. All the local, kids, girls and boys her age, call her a witch and a freak, and everyone's afraid of her. They won't go near their home or their farm. She's very isolated and like introverted, but she goes into the woods at night, and in her family with their magical abilities, they can only enter these wicker woods, they're called, these dark woods, at certain times when the moon is a certain way, or bad things happen, because in this book the woods are alive. The woods are a living thing that are like personified like people. So she's kind of the keeper of lost things. She goes there, and on the certain time when the moon is a certain way, and she goes there and finds things that, human things, from people that have entered the woods and never come back out. She'll find shoes and jewelry and books and things just abandoned in the woods. And she collects them and brings them home because she has no exposure to the outside world. Anyway, when she's in these woods, and you're getting a little backstory on her, and it's really beautifully written, the snow, the frost, the woods, the nature scenes, the way this character is from first point of view, but it goes into her head a lot, how she's thinking. Just the writing style is brilliant. It's really good. I love how this author writes. And there's a lot of metaphor and analogies in there to other things and the way the character perceives and thinks. And then anyway, she finds a boy buried in the snow. There had been some rumors that a boy went missing from the boys' school 2 or 3 days before, and she's in these woods and she finds what she thinks is a dead boy. He's covered in snow, but his hand's sticking out, frozen and blue. And she thinks he's dead, and she's standing over him, and then his fingers move, and he's alive. So she rescues him, pulls him out of the snow. His name is Oliver, the teenager boy, 17. She takes him home, tries to save him, warm him up, yada yada. And he's heard about her, heard that she's like a witch and all these things. But as he's observing her and she's taking care of him, he's like, she just seems like a normal girl to me. Like, he starts to feel some like compassion for her and befriend her a little. But so she asks what happened and how did you get there and why do they all think you're missing and dead. He's like, he doesn't know. He doesn't remember anything. He doesn't know. So it's kind of a mystery. There's a little suspense, mystery to this whole story. And there's something odd about him. She can't place it. But they do, he's there for a day or two, and they do seem like they're bonding a little. And she's never had anyone her age that has spoken to her, because she's kind of like this freak. Like, she's viewed as like a freak, sort of, as a witch. And so anyway, so things happen, and then she's like, well, we better take you back to the school. And they tread across the snow. This is a real great winter read. They go across the snow. She takes them back to the boys' school, and she feels like this evil omen looming as she approaches the property of the school. And her grandmother, who was also like a witch, always said, when you feel these certain things or see the bone moth flying near you, the white moth, someone's going to die, something bad's going to happen. And of course, she sees that moth when she gets to the school. It's following them around. So she walks with Oliver into the mess hall where all these boys are eating. Tons of boys, loud and rowdy, and they walk in and they're just standing there, and they're like, this boy they thought was dead, they was missing for days. And I noticed something was odd when she walks into that mess hall with Oliver, and they're standing there and observing just all the boys eating. No one stops to look at them. No one says, oh, there's the witch. No one says, oh my God, Oliver, you're there, you're alive. And I'm getting this vibe that, and then he just looks kind of like he's just kind of super quiet, like he does not want to be back there, like he has a bad vibe. Like I'm getting the feeling that some of the other boys in school did something to him and he did not want to go back. But then eventually he says, you know, thanks, and he just walks into the boys and absorbs into them. And what I thought was odd is none of the boys, no one sees, turns and says anything to him. So I'm like, that's weird. Okay, so then that's it. That's the last she sees him. And then there's another scene where he shows up again. There's a girl that got stuck there who came to volunteer there, and then a snowstorm came and she got stuck there or something. And I need to put a little more pink right around here. This girl is 16 or 17 and nobody likes her. She's kind of the snob, and she's stuck at this boys' school and begs the witch girl, Nora, to take her back to her house until the storm leaves. And doesn't seem like she's afraid of her, so she takes her back. And at one point, this boy Oliver, he can't stay at the school, like there's something bad there, so he shows up back at Nora's house, the witch girl's house, and walks into the living room and is talking to her. And what I think is odd is, you know, the other girl, there are several scenes where he shows back up, and I've noticed in none of those scenes is anyone else talking, acknowledging he's there. I think he's a ghost. I think he died and only she can see him. But it's making it seem like he's a real person. He's there. Like the other teenage girl doesn't see he walks in around and says something to Nora, and Nora doesn't say anything. So she's silent, and then he leaves. Like the other girl doesn't even look up. Like, why is there a boy in your living room? Same thing as when I think they went into the mess hall. I think the other boys didn't see him. So that is what I suspect it's going. I think he did die, and her, because of her magical abilities, he came back as a ghost or something, or I don't know. I don't know where it's going, but that's just what I'm guessing. But he alludes to there's some mystery, there's some evil like going on at the school. And there's another scene where she comes across a bunch of the boys from the school in the woods doing something bad. So it's kind of like kind of like a murder mystery, but it's more of a fantasy, right? Because she's a witch and she has some magical powers. So it's just, I just get such like Salem witch trial era vibes, you know, kind of crucible setting, you know, like that's, but and a little bit of supernatural element to it. It's really good. It's technically considered a fantasy novel. It's called Winter Wood. But I love the writing, the way that the narrative, I'm going to have to do a video review and then read some of the quotes, but the narrative of how the writer writes about this character from her perspective is just beautiful. It's just prose, like gorgeous writing and flowy and beautiful descriptions of nature and very wise wisdom of how the character thinks and views the world for her age. And then you really feel for her because of her isolation and feeling like she's the outcast, like she doesn't ever think she can have love or be loved or have a normal life. So something though bad's gonna happen, you can tell. So that, I really like that book. Really, really like it. Winter Wood by Shay Earnshaw. And she has another one that I bought that I will read next. It's called The Wicked Deep. So another kind of magical fantasy, dark trope there. Oh my gosh, I have several other books I read last month I could really recommend to you guys, but I guess I can do that in my next video. So I think I've done enough on camera for today. This is about an hour long. So I got at least half the bottom of the basket done. You see how long it takes? So it can take about 2 hours to do the whole basket. And, you know, I was just chatting along, not really thinking about what I was doing, just repeating my pattern, repeating what I was doing, dark to light, for the whole basket we're going to do. So then I'm going to do a part 2 of this video, which will be me doing, I'm going to finish this off camera, my basket. We'll do a part 2 of the video when I will do some strawberries and show you how to do strawberries. And then maybe we will do the background with some pan pastels or something like that. Maybe some little flowers. So let me know if you guys are coloring along. Just a reminder of what the colors are. Mulberry, in this order, hot pink, pink, deco pink, and white. So if you have those colors, pull them out. If maybe you can find something similar. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in part 2 when we can do the strawberry. So if you're coloring along, just feel free to color it all on your off time. I can link below if you're interested those books I was talking about below, because they're all so good, and that's what I'm reading this month. But there are a couple others that are I love even more than those that I could tell you guys about if you're interested in my next coloring chat. So there you go. Let me know if you're interested in anything you heard, or if you're coloring along or giving a stab at this basket. I'd love to hear in the comments below. I'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.